Cash Color Cannabis, a high level of conversation on Live Hip Hop Daily, and this episode is sponsored by Sow and Reap. Created by Charity Parsons, Sow and Reap creates luxury experiences and excursions for connoisseurs. And as you know, this month we are teaming with Sow and Reap to give 2 of my followers with a chance to take part in the Sow and Reap experience. And this is what you got to do. Click the link in our bio on our Instagram page and fill out the form. And at the end of the month, we will choose a winner to receive either a 25% discount on a 2022 Sow and Reap excursion or admissions for 2 to a supper of your choice. So follow Sow and Reap now, learn more about all the experiences they provide, hit the link in the bio, and try to win your chance this month. And also Bossville Farms. What do you know about Bossville Farms? All right, well, whatever you know about Bossville Farms can help you win 2 tickets to their 420 bash. And this is what you got to do. Watch our episode with Bossville Farms' own Derek Muhammad and answer this question. What was Derek Muhammad doing before starting Bossville Farms? The giveaway will be taking place on Bossville's social media channel and will be running until April. There will be 3 winners they're going to choose. Prizes will range from apparel to gift cards to tickets to their 420 bash, where we will actually be We'll be recording live. In order to participate, you do have to follow Bossville on all social media channels and sign up for their newsletter on Bossville's website. So don't waste no time. Go follow them right now on Instagram. Go sign up on their newsletter and see if you get a chance to win this April. All right, without further ado, man, I got my man Mike Lawson with me, man. And normally I got a good intro to run up, man. You know, but I'm like, I don't know, man. I feel like we done did so much talking already. I'm like, I think we just need to go ahead and get into this, man. So, but Mike is a good brother, man. I met you through just kind of coming up through the podcast. I met you through that kind of channel right there, man. We started chopping up. But I know I've seen you before with the New Orleans Black Cannon Con.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, man.
Yes,
and I always knew
indeed.
you was in them streets, man.
Yes,
so
indeed.
By the time we got a chance to really kind of vibe out here when you came through the show a couple of times, I was like, I got a spot open. I really want to get into what Mike be doing. And then I saw you at Emerald Conference, and I was like, all right, we really got to sit down and do this chop.
Absolutely.
So, Mike, what's good with you, man?
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for the invitation, for sure.
No doubt. All right, so before we get into the whole interview, man, let us know, for those who are brand new to the show or brand new to you, introduce yourself, tell us what you do.
Absolutely, man. My name is Mike Lawson, Jr., L.A. native, Ladera Heights, to be exact. Ooh. That's Lawson and La Cienega, for those that don't know. But I came to Atlanta 21 years ago as a freshman at Morehouse College. So, as they say, I flew here, and I've been here ever since. I mean, I move back and forth here and there. But my company is Cannabis Media Collective. Yeah. It's a cannabis education platform seeking to educate consumers, medical professionals, and really bring an intellectual and academic approach to cannabis in the professional world.
I love it too, man. In it's crazy you came from Cali. Like, I was talking last night. I used to date a girl. She used to live in Torrance.
I used to live in Torrance.
Bro, she used to take me out to Cali, man. You talk about some stories. I remember being out in the hood out there, and I'm from Boston. I'm just used to walking around. You know what I mean? I remember we was kicking at these people's house. I ain't gonna say their names because they actually pretty famous people. But we was kicking at their crib. We was in the hood, and I remember saying, "Yo, I'm gonna go over across the street, go get some blunts." And they was like, "Whoa, hold up, don't do that." And I was like, "Why?" I was like, I'm used to walking around. They had sent somebody to walk with me. So I'm like, well, I don't need nobody. I don't need no security. I mean, it's just we walk across the street.
It's Torrance.
I didn't realize what it was getting into until we crossed the street.
Yes,
and you see all these dudes outside the store. And I was like, all right, yeah, they right. Because this looked like a whole rap video right here.
Right.
And I'm about to stumble into the wrong thing over here for some cigarillos.
Absolutely. You must have been on the east side of Torrance.
Bro, look, I remember, I had a gang of fun out there, though, man. Like, that was probably matter of fact, the highest I ever been was out there. Like, we had, it was when Chronic was actually still in the streets. And when
Chronic era.
Bro, I hit that shit, and I remember we was out in Universal
City Walk.
City Walk.
Yeah.
We was on Universal City Walk. I remember hitting that, and I was so lit. Something just told me, yo, you could do a full sprint right now. Bro, I tell you, I kid you not. So something told me you could do a full sprint right now. And we was all just sitting here walking casually, and I was like, pew, nigga, I took off, boy. Yeah, so I was at then I need to chill.
That's the Chronic era.
Yeah, LA is a different level of weed.
Absolutely.
And
strong
this is years
sativa.
ago, so this is a different level of weed, man. But shout out to Torrance, shout out to Cali.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I'm a child of the movement. I was 13 when medical cannabis passed, Prop 215 in California. So I really just grew up with the understanding that cannabis is medicine.
Cali's always been one big ass gray area when it came to like weed sales, all that. Like you hear people say, yeah, it's legal, but I'm like, but where? You know what I'm saying? But it was always like this big ass gray area.
Absolutely. And you know, the epicenter really, growing up in California, you didn't really understand growing up that we are the epicenter of the best cannabis on the planet. Yeah. Right? You don't really understand that until you travel elsewhere and you can't find it. Yeah. Right? And I think that's changed over the years. You know, more people have access. But, you know, we're in a different era now. We're not in the chronic era. For sure.
Now we in the runts, we in the everything other era.
Yeah, man. We in this weird era. You know, people throwing that word exotics out there and Zaza and all that, but I can't stand that word.
Bro, I can't stand the word Zaza.
I can't stand that word. I feel like that's a word that was made up just for marketing purposes. Yeah. You know, I think people always want what's new and what's hot. But a lot of Zaza is some boof. And everybody listening who knows, if they say it's some Za, you should beware. Yeah,
definitely do your research. Like people love saying, man.
Your due diligence.
Do your research. All right, so man, before we get into you know the platform and everything you do, talk to us about the first time you actually experienced cannabis. Like, when was the first time you hit the plant?
Man, that's a story. So, you know, I've been around the podcast and I've watched a lot of episodes, and I think this might be a new twist for you and as a host. So, I would say I was actually 7 years old.
What?
Believe it or not.
He's a delinquent.
7 years old, snooping around my parents' crib. Shout out to my mom and dad. Nobody will take ownership to this. But, man, I'm snooping around, 7 years old. I found some pre-rolls tucked up way up in the cabinet somewhere, and went in the bed. Had no idea what it was. I thought it was a cigarette.
Now, most people, when they find in porn, you found weed.
That part. So my cannabis journey started early, right? So I'm snooping around the house, just being a kid, right? And I find something, you know, look like a cigarette. Went in the bathroom, turned the fan on, and lit it up. And my mom was gone at the time, and I was actually supposed to go to a friend's house. So boom, smoked it. Went on the illest bike ride I've ever had. I still remember it to this day. I'm almost 40 years old. So, yeah, my first introduction to cannabis, I remember I was 7 because me and my younger brother are 8 years apart. My brother wasn't around yet. Yeah. So I know I wasn't 8, I was 7. But, yeah, illest bike ride. So that was my first introduction to cannabis. But on a more serious note, it really wasn't until high school, 9th grade, you know, hanging out at the park, chronic era.
Yeah, man.
You know.
Chronic
era. Hit some chronic out of a bong and went straight to the moon.
Chronic is no joke, dude. like chronic will actually put you out somewhere.
Yeah, I think chronic is the equivalent of the Kush era. I feel like when Kush came into the stratosphere, probably like 2001, 2002, that's what chronic was in the 90s.
See, you know, I was watching Styles P on a podcast recently. He was talking about different eras, and you know, I'm from the East Coast. So right. I remember we was talking about the sour. You know what I'm saying? Like, we was on that, like back then.
Yeah, for sure.
And even shit with the Purple Haze. Like, remember when Purple Haze was popular? Purple Haze, I remember you used to scour everywhere to find this little jar.
Absolutely.
Of some Purple Haze, boy. That
Absolutely.
Shit was good, too.
I feel like on the East Coast, y'all had the Purple Haze, and then we had the Granddaddy Purp on the West.
Shout out to Granddaddy. Everybody had a little memories right now.
Yeah, the Granddaddy is like no other.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, we talk real high about, you know, high grade weed, but at one point too, I remember when we was smoking some good Arizona. Like there was some really good
Popcorn AZ.
Popcorn AZ was the shit. We was saying like it was some real shit too, y'all. Got that popcorn.
And most importantly, it was good weed that was cheap.
Yes.
Right? So you could be a regular Joe and be smoking good, but I think that era has come and gone.
There's a couple times in my life, man, I sit back and I miss the Reggie era, because it was like, I don't know what it was, but when not only was it cheap, I'm like, yo, how did we just get high and not really give a fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like when we were smoking, like nobody cared what strain you was in. Nobody was like, yo, so what am I smoking? Is it indica, sativa? We was just passing blunts.
It was a 3 for $10.
Facts. Facts. Matter of fact, shout out to my boy John, my old roommate Jamal. Man, I had a roommate. I think you've been here before. You know, my roommate when I was in school, he was from Trinidad. No, he's from St. Thomas.
Right.
And he's always joke with us in school, like, yo, y'all ain't even getting high on the weed. Y'all getting high on the blunts.
Which is true.
Because, I was getting high on strawberry blunts.
Yes.
Maybe that's why we didn't give a fuck.
Yes. You know, that's an interesting conversation, too, because part of my platform in educating people is I want us to move away from the tobacco with the weed, right? I feel like the better quality cannabis you have, the less you should use tobacco with it.
Bro, I preach that to this moment to folks. Like, yo, if we gonna smoke some good shit, like, can you wrap it up in a paper? Like, you know, but people will argue you down by papers nowadays. Like, I don't want to smoke that; it's gonna burn too quick. Yada yada yada.
Absolutely. And then more importantly, man, on a social tip, it dawned on me a couple years ago because I'm a cannabis nerd, so I just started doing the math on my calculator and looking at the millions of dollars we're spending on these products in gas stations, smoke shops, etc. But when's the last time?
Never. I already know where you're going.
You know where I'm going with this, right?
When's
the last time Swisher Sweet,
Never
Dutch Master,
Never a day.
Game, any of these organizations have added any value in our communities? We haven't had a festival.
Nope.
We haven't had a scholarship.
Yo, what they definitely don't do, they don't like to acknowledge that we use it for this. Like, they really want to believe people out here smoking a mint tobacco.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, who the fuck smoking a mint Optimo?
Exactly. And so most of us who I think are blunt smokers, we love the vibe. We love the sensation, but it's really a mind fuck because we're actually addicted to the nicotine.
Yeah. And also, it's also part of our upbringing. Like I told you know, like even like in my own personal story, I learned how to roll a blunt listening to Redman's How to Roll a Blunt. You know what I mean? So everything, everything through me growing up and me consuming involved a blunt. Like I didn't really hear nobody talking about papers until shit, we talking about Wiz and Currency era at this point. Like, and you talking about decades later. You know what I'm saying? I ain't hear nobody doing that. Everybody in my era, from the Jadas to Biggies, everybody was smoking blunts.
That's
right. So I was just like, let me go to the store and go get me a blunt.
Absolutely. And I think growing up on the West Coast, it was kind of opposite for me. It was more pipes, bongs, and papers.
Yeah. Right. You know, the West Coast put me on the cigarellos. I didn't know nobody actually did that until I had to go out there. That time I was in Torrance, they gave me a cigarello. I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this shit?
Right.
What am I supposed to do with
Y'all
this?
Smoking presidential Dutch Masters and all that.
Oh yeah. We was stuffing a whole lot of Reggie in a big ass blunt. Yeah, it was that was the life back then, man.
Reggie Miller.
But you came down here. You came down to Atlanta, Morehouse grad.
Yes, sir.
When you was at Morehouse, were you studying media? Like.
Nah, I was actually an English major.
Okay.
I chose a major that came easy to me. Not that I didn't want a challenge, but I've seen a lot of brothers in the business program, 5th, 6th year grads. You know what I'm saying? And I knew I had 4 years to crack that thing open. And so I was an English major, but I was always passionate about cannabis. I think my academic and intellectual pursuit of cannabis started my sophomore year. I'll never forget. I had a blunt, like half a blunt that I didn't smoke from earlier that day, and I smoked it before I went in the library. And little did I know at that time I was microdosing cannabis, right? And when I tell you that my focus, I was in the library, I'll never forget, for about 4 hours. Felt like it was 2 hours. Yeah. Shout out to Club Woody. And back then, that's where all the baddest chicks were, the smartest chicks. They were in the library. So that was the place where you really wanted to be.
They still are, though.
And they still are.
They still are.
But I think that's when my view and approach to cannabis changed, when I realized, wait, this can help me focus. Yeah. And literally, if you look at my Morehouse transcript from freshman year probably to that day that I'm describing, my GPA never fell below like 3.5, 3.3.
Word, man. He learned the microdosing was the key to life.
Right. Absolutely.
So, when I first met you, you was on the Cannabis Media Collective. Like, you was explaining that to me, and I was loving the story because, we kind of on the same deal. Like, Cash Color Cannabis is a lot about entertainment and education. Right. So we kind of educate. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we want to be on that too. And when you was explaining to me the concept of your platform, I was like, that sounds dope as hell.
Absolutely.
How did you come up with the concept of Cannabis Media Collective? Like, and again, was it a hard sell to people? Because right now we in a situation where people love to talk about weed, but it's more about how much you smoke and what strain you smoke.
Absolutely. I think for people who are in the cannabis space, it's not a hard sell at all, right? Because we know that the plant is tremendously stigmatized. In all aspects, particularly mainstream media. But I came up with the idea and the name because I want to educate people, but I really want to educate people on all aspects of cannabis, right? And inform not only our consumers, our medical professionals, because we have a lot of doctors out there who are not even familiar with what the endocannabinoid system is, for instance, right? No. And then in the professional world, right? And so I'll tell a couple of stories. Back in 2015, I was working as a therapist in DeKalb County Juvenile Court. So I was working with young people that are on probation. Shout out to Chief Judge Vincent Crawford. We did some great work together. And I was working with these young men who were running the risk of violating their probation for a positive THC urine screen, right? So we talking about brothers that are facing 2-3 years in the state penitentiary because they can't stop smoking cannabis. But I was able to convince the court that, number one, these young men are using cannabis to really cope with trauma, right? Post-traumatic stress, mental trauma, physical trauma. But also I had to convince the court that these drug screens that we're using on our young people weren't telling us anything. It's just telling us positive or negative, right? Yeah. It's not telling me nanogram levels. It's not telling me how much am I.
It just tells you you failed.
It just, right. It just tells me you failed. So it doesn't tell me on Monday whether or not you use cannabis, and on Wednesday and whether or not your cannabis use is increasing or decreasing. So I was able to convince the court to spend some more money to use more sophisticated testing, so we could understand more about our clients' cannabis use and prevent these young people from, risking their freedom over the cannabis plant. Fast forward, I had major surgery on my sinuses. I had 3 major surgeries in one sitting. And my anesthesiologist, literally, as I'm about to lay down on the table, he whispers in my ear, he says, hey, man, this is a brother, too. He says, hey, have you heard of CBD? You might really want to look into it. It's going to help with your inflammation and your recovery and so on. And I was like, yeah, I heard of CBD. At the time, I was familiar with CBD, but I never used it.
I would have thought I was hallucinating. A doctor just told me some shit like that.
you already know that as a cannabis person, I was delighted to hear that. But guess what? The next day, he gave me his phone number, but I'm calling, I'm emailing. I wasn't texting, but dude is a ghost. I couldn't find this dude. Couldn't get any information. So at that moment, I realized this doctor just gave me some tremendously valuable information.
That was your weed godfather.
You feel me? That I could now do nothing with. I didn't know where to go to get the CBD. I didn't know how much to use. I didn't know when to use it, how to use it, etc. So luckily I had a mentor, actually. Shout out to Dr. Uma Donabalin. She's actually in Boston.
Dr. Uma, yeah.
Dr. Uma. I had met Dr. Uma probably like a year prior to this. And so I called her, and long story short, she got me situated. And I figured out how to use it. But I would say that's the genesis of Cannabis Media Collective, where I understood that so many people need to be educated on how to use this plant to improve their quality of life.
Man, so many people needed you in court. Like to advocate for them.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Man, all you can know is I failed the test. You didn't know when I did it,
when
the levels fell. They needed you for real.
They loved me.
That was a whole occupation you just created right there. Yeah. Hey, I'm a weed advocate. Let me get you out of this situation.
Oh yeah, man. Let me tell you, man. These young men, they would be lining up outside the courtroom because their friends, they would know that their friends failed this drug test.
Yeah.
And that they went to court and they came out of court and went back home. Yeah. So that I had a reputation of helping these young men. But I realized that need goes way beyond DeKalb County Court. It goes way beyond Atlanta, Georgia. This is a national, really a global issue where we need to bring awareness to the fact that cannabis is improving people's quality of life in any number of ways, but we're still being criminalized and penalized for that, right?
Plus, a good conversation is how it's being used amongst brothers and sisters in the inner city.
Yes.
When it comes to PTSD.
Yes.
And I feel like, if you grow up in a situation where you are hearing gunshots on a regular basis, you might know friends of yours who have died early.
Yes.
Like when I see a lot of rappers now, when you see a lot of rappers chain smoking, I'm like, that's probably more of a coping mechanism, less a habit.
1,000%.
At this point.
1,000%. And I can speak to that not only, if I put my therapist hat on, but I suffer from post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
When I witnessed, the first time I witnessed a murder, and I say the first time, I was 10 years old.
I was about to say, brother, we all have. Like, if we really talk about, if you grew up in the inner city, we all have. Like, even me and my therapist, when I spoke to her, she'll tell you about how I can recall stuff immediately.
Absolutely.
And she said the fact that you decades later could recall that means that you you haven't let it go yet.
Absolutely. And so for all the people out there who can relate, when you're talking about post-traumatic stress, you're talking about lack of sleep, right? Mm-hmm. Sleep disturbances. You're talking about coping with feelings of hypervigilance, right? Walking into a room, looking to see where the exits are, right?
Think about that next time you see your favorite rapper smoking nonstop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It might really be a situation going on where he's trying to get out of that.
Absolutely. And so it was very hard for me working as a therapist years ago, knowing that these young men are afflicted by post-traumatic stress, and they're using this to treat their symptoms, essentially. But also, I wasn't able to really confide in them about my own cannabis use.
Yeah.
Right. And so, especially being in Georgia at the time. And so, the need for this is tremendous. And when you talk about our young people, another aspect that needs to be touched on is we got to stop criminalizing our youth for cannabis use in schools. I know it sounds crazy, but the reality is, because I also worked as a school counselor, we can't be sending our kids home because they smell like weed, right? They're medicating through their trauma. So we need to have a whole paradigm shift in terms of how we treat our young people and how we educate our young people and educators in authority figure positions.
Man, you're talking about a great conversation, because as we watch cannabis become legal in so many states, there's way too much conversation about who's going to be able to sell and not enough conversation about like what you just said.
Yes.
Even with it goes back to so many different issues, especially in our community.
Absolutely.
Of what this plant means. Like, it's
Absolutely.
bigger than just who's going to sell it. Like, how are we using it? Why have you been using it so long?
Yes.
Why have we been punishing ourselves across the board?
Yes.
For this, when this has been something that probably has evened out a lot of people.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And I think historically in the black and brown community, I think we ourselves have been criminalized to the point where our elders see it as illegal, see it as harmful, and they just want us to stay out of the guise of law enforcement, right? But as you just mentioned, those days are over, right? And I think that predominantly we focus on, or we're always thinking about cultivation, dispensary ownership, right? But there's such a vast sea of opportunity in the cannabis business in terms of ancillary services, right? Cannabis accounting, cannabis taxes, architecture, design, marketing, the list just goes on. And so how do we encourage our young people to enter into this soon to be $1 trillion space, right? Is good because we're already in the 200, 400 billion range. It's going to be $1 trillion industry eventually. And we can't miss that wave. So that's another mission of the Cannabis Media Collective, is to expose our young people and our community to the immense opportunities in this space.
Yeah. And one way you do it is by highlighting certain figures. You've asked me to be on the show. I'm going to definitely be on the show. Man.
Oh, for sure.
Speak to us about some of the people that you had a chance to highlight, some of the events you had a chance to cover, and the stories you got a chance to tell.
Oh, absolutely. You mentioned the Emerald Conference. The Emerald Conference is one of the premier cannabis science conferences put on by MJ Biz and a section of MJ Biz Science. And that was in San Diego last month. And when you talk about high-level conversations in cannabis, I have a master's degree. I was the least educated person in the room.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking PhDs in biology, genetics, engineering, so on and so forth, talking about the future of cannabis, right? Talking about the future of cultivation, the future of, they're even talking about making synthetic terpenes, right? And understanding that, wow, we can now create our own terpene profiles that are just for you, right? And I don't know if I agree with that, because I think that we need to keep the plant as natural as possible.
I was going to say synthetic is going to turn off a lot of
people.
Yeah.
Synthetic turned me all the way off. I pulled the guest speaker to the side
immediately. So we got to talk about this shit.
I'm like, because it's called terpene synthase, right? And so it's like, okay, but should we be doing that? Because part of the conversation at the Emerald Conference was this whole plant paradigm, in that should we even be isolating CBD, CBN, CBG, and all of these different cannabinoids? Because a lot of scientists believe that the terpenes, the cannabinoids, they all work in concert together. There's an entourage effect, right? And so if we separate one from the other, we might be losing some of that effect. And so, the Emerald Conference was completely eye-opening. I connected with Dr. Talleyrand, who you know.
Shout out to Dr. Talleyrand,
Yeah, shout out to Dr. Talleyrand. I connected with Dr. Greg Ward, who's a cannabis medical doctor out of Louisiana. Major things happen in Louisiana. I have a great relationship with Dr. Sean Hedman, who is the director of the Society of Cannabis Clinicians out of Portland, Oregon. And they're all talking about how cannabis is improving millions of people's lives, every day, day in and day out. And so we're just trying to get that message out.
That sounds like the non-sexy conference. Like everybody
Right.
want to go to MJ Biz, everybody want to go to, you know what I'm saying, like
Right.
MJ Unpacked and everything. But
Right.
that was probably the shit we should have been to.
Man, let me tell you, one thing I will say, the after parties at these conferences, some of the best cannabis I've ever
Oh, I believe you.
been exposed
I
to.
believe you. Now,
And I'm a tough critic.
It's the shit that I probably couldn't have got past is the conversations. 'Cause like you say, we talking about people who got extra levels of intelligence about this,
Yeah.
and you want to get high and talk about it.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
we're
know.
talking about,
Like, I don't know.
a huge conversation was artificial intelligence in cannabis and in cultivation, right?
Oh, like using AI to grow.
AI in cultivation.
Don't say that out loud,
Yeah,
man, because
so-
you're going to get some farmers ready to boycott.
Man, because I'm old school. I still believe in getting your hands in the dirt.
Yeah.
Shout out to Black Mountain, farms in the building. And so there's a whole new wave and a whole new era of science coming to the cannabis space that even cannabis connoisseurs are not aware of, right? And so we want to bring that knowledge to the forefront and just reduce some of the stigma just around this plant. Because the reality is, we kind of discussed this before we got started, we have professionals out here using cannabis every day, right? And they're using it, and little do their supervisors know it's probably improving their quality of work, right? In the workplace, people are getting better sleep, people are less anxious, right? And people are improving their quality of life, which in turn improves the quality of their work.
Man, I need you to be, you an advocate. Like, anybody who got to take a drug test soon, call Mike.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So he could campaign. So, you know what I'm saying? Let him be an advocate for you, man.
Absolutely.
I'm be like, yo, just tap him right here. This is why I don't want to take this test.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that, because at the Emerald Conference, I was having a conversation with Shauna. I forget her last name. She's a head scientist at True Terpenes. I was having a conversation with Cave at Pluribus, and we were talking about can you go 30 days without using cannabis?
And here we go.
Let's get into it, right?
We trying it out now.
You feel me? And it started off as just a very interesting conversation, but it ended up being a challenge where, some of the people were like, oh man, you can't go 30 days without using cannabis. That's impossible. It's not, And so it started off as a challenge, but when I put my therapist and my mental health hat on, I realized, when's the last time I went 30 days without cannabis?
I told you off here, the last time I went 30 days without campus, when I moved to Atlanta and I didn't know nobody to buy from.
Right.
So that was the last time I went 30 days.
Oh yeah,
without.
and the last time I did was the summer of 2001 when I got to Atlanta.
See, everything started when we first got here. We didn't know nobody.
It's 21 years ago, and so on a deeper level, the reality is we all need to have a tolerance break and reset our endocannabinoid system, right? And balance and bring balance to that. And some people might be saying, well, what's the endocannabinoid system? Well, all mammals, humans, dogs, cats, rats, we all have CB1 and CB2 receptors in our brains and throughout our whole bodies. They pretty much receive the compounds of the cannabis plant, right? And so that's why when we use cannabis for upset stomach, we have receptors in our gut that receive the cannabis plant, right? For migraines, post-traumatic stress, epilepsy, autism, the whole list of conditions. The human body is designed to receive the plant, but we also have to bring some balance to it, right? And so there is such a thing as you can't overdose on cannabis, but you can overdo it, right? And so it's all
like overstimulating your system.
Absolutely, and the science is showing us, and they were talking about this at the Emerald Conference, that when you take a tolerance break, those receptors regenerate and reset, right? And that's why you feel your tolerance level go down when you even take a 24, 48, or 72-hour break. And so when I thought about the 30-day cannabis cleanse, I was thinking, like, at first it was kind of just like a cool little science experiment, but then I realized, I went back to my days years ago working with the young people, and I realized there are millions of people out here who need to stop smoking cannabis for various reasons, right? I got a friend of mine, I won't mention his name, put him out there, but he finished pharmacy school. He had a $125,000 salary, entry-level salary waiting on him.
Oh, yeah, you was telling me about that.
And he said, oh, man, let me just hit this one time. And he failed his drug test, and he missed out on that opportunity, right? And so Right. Damn is right. We'll put some emphasis on that. And so there are certain instances where, although cannabis improves our quality of life in any number of ways, there are situations where we need to scale back, right? Whether it's for employment, whether it's for criminal justice reasons, whether it's for personal reasons, right? Because when I sat back and thought about it, cannabis is part of my identity.
Yeah.
Right, people that have known me for the past 20 years, they associate me with good cannabis. If we just keep it honest, right? And so, then I had to think to myself, like, who am I at 30 days without cannabis? I don't know. I got to circle back to when I was like 19 years old. You know what I'm saying? And so, and so it's a journey, but I think it's also a transformational journey because I'm only 11 days in, and I'm already seeing a difference. Just in my attitude and my energy, but also that I was smoking way too much bud.
You know, I told you I let you down because I'm supposed to be on a 30-day run with you too, and I messed up Saturday.
It's a process, brother. It's a process,
bro.
Brother.
When you was texting me, that's why I text you. When I text you, I say, bro, you know what? You're gonna mess up, so just pat yourself on the back.
Oh, that was when you was going.
That was for me.
You was smoking at that time.
That was a pep talk for me.
Yeah, you gotta slip up, bro. It's okay.
What I learned is because I've done that actually. I ain't gonna lie to you. I've done it twice now. Like over this last 3 weeks, I've slipped up twice. I've had a run, and then before you know it, I'm like, let me just hit this junk.
Right.
But what I've learned over that time is I actually like microdosing more than hitting the whole blunt.
Right.
Like that's why I was like, when I found out like, yo, I can hit it once and put it down, I'm like, damn, I slipped. But I'm actually higher right now than anything by doing that.
I'm looking forward to that moment because I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to just keep it real. Leading up to the Emerald Conference, I was stressed out one day. All the married dads out there, you know what time it is. And I smoked like 5 grams in one day.
That's a lot of weed.
But this is 5 grams of some high-grade cannabis, right?
Yeah.
The cannabis you talk about, the average person will hit it 2 times, put it out. And I'm just, it got time for me to go to bed. And I'm sitting here like, wait a minute. I smoked all this today, right? Because I'm a cannabis nerd. I dose out all my bud before I roll it up. Well, I haven't in the past 11 days. But, I roll back when my tolerance was lower, I could roll a 0.4, just to relieve some anxiety and relax. I'll roll a 0.8 if I'm working and I'm on the move. And I'll roll a gram before I go to sleep, right? So I always are very intentional and precise in terms of I want to get the same outcome every time. Yeah. Right. But one thing I know I call one of my pillars of cannabis is a cannabis smoker is going to smoke whatever they have. So if you got 7 grams is getting smoked.
Damn, I feel like you're talking about me right now, dude.
Oh yeah, and I think that's your issue because, like you mentioned weeks ago, like I still had some bud laying around, and
that's how it happened,
and it gets tricky.
That's
like
exactly how I was sitting in the house. It gets tricky
like that.
I'm by myself, and I remembered I got this bud sitting right here, and before you know it, it was almost like it talked to me.
And then you look right, you're looking at it, and you're like, ooh, it looks so good,
bro. And then you already know how it go. Next thing you know, I'm watching Donnie Brasco, and I'm like, damn, I need to roll. Damn.
Oh, right. Yo, and that's been the most difficult thing for me is that the most difficult yet the most eye-opening thing is that when you are a daily cannabis user, you may not admit it, but a lot of us become trapped and become prisoners to our routines and to our rituals, right? That movie comes on, it's like, oh, I got to roll up.
Yeah.
That song comes on, it's like, ooh, I got to roll up. Oh, I'm headed to the podcast on Tuesday. Oh, I got to roll up.
You definitely do. It's Cash Color Cannabis. Like,
you know what I'm saying? So even being in here in this space and not smoking right now is very awkward for me, to be quite honest with you. But I also feel like it's important in terms of our growth as human beings and to make that transformation and understand how much do you really need, right? Because even in my 11 days, I'm realizing like, dude, I was smoking a lot of bud. Yeah. Right? When realistically, I use it most like before exercise. I like to ride my bike, play soccer. And I did my same exercise routine and I was dumb sore, super pain. I had to pop a 600 milligram ibuprofen, all of that. Seriously. But it dawned on me like I'm smoking before I engage in these activities. So when I get back to cannabis 20 or 19 days from now, I'm realizing that my main reason for using is going to be pain, inflammation, and sleep. I'm not going to have to use it during the day as much as I was using it. But that's the struggle. If it's around, you're gonna smoke it.
Yeah, man, I feel the struggle. You know what I mean?
Oh, the struggle is real.
I've been fighting through it. I mean,
The struggle
these
is
last
real.
2 days, for some reason, it felt like 2 months. But I've been getting through it.
You know, like they say day 4 is like the hardest, and that's like kind of like the urban myth. But I have to concur with that. Yeah. It's like the first 3 days, it's like, and then day 4 come around, it gets tricky. I'm not gonna lie, I'm dropping melatonin 10 milligrams at night to sleep. Like, the struggle is real.
I feel like it's worse for me right now because basically this is my life between the podcast. Like every day is a conversation. Somebody's trying to either ask me about bud, we either talking about something on the show.
Absolutely.
It's like I can't escape it. Like I say, by the time I end the day, I might be like, shit, now I gotta roll up. You know what I'm saying? We done talked about it all the whole entire day.
I thought about that on the way here. I'm sitting here like, okay, when I leave your podcast, I have my little routine. And I'm in here smoking.
Yeah.
I'm smoking when I leave. When I get to my next destination, I'm smoking. So I'm like, when I go home tonight, it's gonna be very awkward.
Yeah. Just think about the days you smoked, man. It'll help.
Man.
Think about it. Reminisce.
Man. I hope it helps.
What's your favorite ways to consume? Is it through a joint? Is it through an edible? Is it a dab? Like, what's your favorite way?
Man, I'm an inhalation guy. I can't do the dabs. I think I have like mild asthma, and the dab is just too much for me. Bro, it's just too much. All that coughing. It's like I like to enjoy my fade.
Yeah.
And I don't enjoy my fade off the dab. I'm like, I feel like my lung is coming up through my throat.
You get high so quick too.
Yeah.
Like you get high like it'd be too quick for
exactly.
me
It's like I'm not trying to get on a rocket ship. I'm just trying to get in a slow moving vehicle, right? And so I like to roll. Before I kind of eased off of the tobacco, 'cause I used to be a big blunt smoker. I love the leaf. And then it's funny you mentioned it. My boy, Dr. Uma's son, actually put me on to just he actually introduced me to rolling the leaf inside the papers.
Oh, listen to Joe.
Man, when he took me there, bro.
Listen to this guy right here.
Bro, when I feel like Shivaji.
He's like he's spitting.
Yo, Shivaji hit me to that probably like last September or something, whenever he was in town.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Just the way it hit and just the fade. But like we were talking about, I had to realize like it's the nicotine, right? You know you're addicted to rolling blunts when you go to the store and they don't have the blunts you like, and you go down the street to the next store to find the ones you like.
I did that, Blue Optimos.
That's when you know you have a nicotine addiction. And so, before I started my cleanse, I went through a whole process. You know, I used to work as a therapist, so I kind of had the cheat code. So I started scaling back on different aspects of my smoking. So first I'm like, let me fall back on the tobacco because that's what I'm really addicted to, right? Mm-hmm. So I scaled the tobacco back. So I'm smoking papers. Shout out to Justin Buck at Pearl.
Shout out to Jay, man. Yeah,
that's my guy. So
we should have some of them papers around here somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. Shout out to Pure Lifestyle. They have some really good paper products as well. So I'm a papers guy, but I also like to mix my papers with ingestibles, right? Shout out to Best Dirty Lemonade. They have some of the best infused lemonade on the market.
Dirty shit will sit you down.
Oh, so my regimen used to be I'll smoke a gram and then finish it off with an 8-ounce lemonade.
And you
out
sleep.
like
I'm
a
about
light.
to say, then you sleep.
Oh, we talk about restorative sleep, right? We talking about 6 hours of sleep that feels like 8.
Dirty. This is the commercial.
Right?
This is the commercial.
1,000%.
This is the commercial.
Big shout out to Best Dirty Lemonade. And so I'm a classic. I'm lame with the flavors. I don't do all the wild flavors he has except for the classic. But I like to complement, an edible with the inhalation, depending on what I'm doing. I don't really do edibles while I'm out and about because I don't like how you can't really scale it back. You can't turn it down. You can't. It's none of that. And I'm the type person. My metabolism, it'll start to kick at like an hour and a half, but 2 hours is full tilt, and it feel like it's like never coming down.
And then you gotta be around people who ain't high.
Right, which is the most awkward thing, because now you're sitting here wondering, like, do they know how faded I am?
No, they don't. I do though.
You do, exactly. Can they tell? I think that the advantage of the edible is that you can be super faded, but you won't smell like you.
And
just
you won't look
it.
it either. It's not like you can have red eyes. So you know you high.
Exactly.
They don't know you high.
I typically do the edibles or the ingestibles when I'm at the crib. I'm at home in a controlled environment and I'm chilling, right? And I recommend that for other people. All that driving, hanging out, being outside off edible, nah, that's out. I'm not with that.
I ain't with the psychopath shit.
Nah. I'm cool.
You know what's crazy? The names you just mentioned, from Dirty to Buck to yourself, and I'm gonna drop another name, Dr. Hodge. Somehow Morehouse, a school that teaches you nothing about weed, has produced like 4 entrepreneurs I know and a doctor who specializes in telling you about your endocannabinoid system.
Absolutely.
And all that. How did Morehouse, man? Y'all need to talk about that more.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, man. Shout out to Henry Goodgame, director of alumni. Justin and I are actually talking to Mr. Goodgame about really creating a curriculum and a pipeline for these young men to come into the cannabis industry and make it official. Right, let's not hide in the shadows with this anymore.
Boy, put me on, man. Let me come speak to them.
Oh, absolutely. No, you definitely got to come in the mix. Matter of fact, we setting something up for homecoming.
Okay,
we're gonna have a whole panel and a whole situation.
Oh, put me on.
Absolutely, and because this is an industry that we have to get into. I'll give you a quick history lesson. A lot of people know Harry Anslinger, the architect of cannabis prohibition, right? Yes. Well, people that aren't familiar. Before cannabis was illegal, they had to go on a state-to-state campaign to convince the governors to fall in line with cannabis prohibition. When they came to New York, Fiorello LaGuardia Airport, he knew there was a bunch of bullshit. He knew it was a bunch of lies about the dangers of cannabis and so on and so forth.
He must have been microdosing.
Oh, guaranteed. and New York, of course, being the size at the time, it had the most cannabis speakeasies and it had thriving culture back then. Fiorello LaGuardia put together something called the Laguardia Commission in 1939, which was the New York Academy of Medicine did a 4-year study on cannabis in the city of New York. And they came, I'm not going to go through all the findings, but they came to 13 findings. One of the most interesting to me was that the epicenter of cannabis distribution and sale was Harlem, USA. So this has been in our backyard. For almost 100 years.
It also makes sense why the Harlem Renaissance was so jumping.
Come on.
It makes sense why all this creativity was flowing out of Harlem all at one time.
I think that historically things are coming full circle.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of my saying is we can't have representation without participation. We got to get in. We got to get in the game. We got to get in the game, man. So that's really part of my mission.
Well, definitely, I'm down, man, for that panel, bro. I've been wanting to speak to another school. I did the NYU thing, man. I thought that was lit. So
absolutely.
I definitely want to talk to
absolutely. No, you definitely have to be on the panel because it's entrepreneurs just coming out of Morehouse, but just in the city of Atlanta that are really, and I'm gonna just give you your flowers while you're here. Is you a pioneer in this space, right? When we look back 30, 40 years from now, those of us, here you go, those of us who are in the game right now, the Black Mountains of the world, Cash Color Cannabis of the world, Best Dirty Lemonade, Pearl Rolling Company, we are cannabis pioneers in this space. And we got to own that. But we also got to kick the door down for all the young brothers that's coming behind us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Facts, man. Bro, I appreciate you coming through tonight. You definitely dropped some knowledge on the audience. You definitely dropped some knowledge on me.
No doubt.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get back on my cleanse with you, man.
Hey, man, the struggle is real.
The struggle's real.
The struggle is real.
Life be serious.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna start texting you and checking up on you, my brother.
Please do, please. Like how I text you and say, you know what, dog? If you fall, it's okay.
Hey, but you know what? I appreciate you sending me that though, because I was sitting there struggling with my kids, because I've been keeping funky with you. Like I'm that dad. Like when my kids are taking a nap, I'm putting one up,
bro.
Okay.
I promise you, I was texting you that with a joint in my mouth. Like, bro, let me tell you something, dog. If you fall, it's cool.
And so
we all fall down.
Man, we all, but we get back up.
Back up.
So yeah, the struggle is real, but I think the journey is worth it in the end.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to go through a transformation and an evolution in their lives, and a lot of times that has to do with taking a break on things that bring you tremendous pleasure. Right, and so that's what we're doing,
bro. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for becoming part of the Cash Color Cannabis family out here, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you for dropping all the knowledge today, man. This is a perfect way to end the month of March.
Hey, man, let's go because 420 is around the corner, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Yee.
That's gonna be a whole nother. That's gonna be a whole nother.
That's a whole nother episode.
I already
yes.
got people. Yo, we gonna be doing pop-ups and everything
yes.
because midway in April, I'm gonna be able to kick this permanently and be like, look. Now I can get back to smoking.
Oh look. I got it on my radar.
Facts. I got it.
My daughter's birthday.
Down.
My daughter's birthday is April 17th on Easter. That is day 30. April 18th is on, and I gotta scale myself back up. So 420, I'm not like falling off in the cut zone.
Well, I was telling folks that, man, when I did my first full week of not, and then I was so high.
It's tricky.
Yeah, it was only off a couple puffs. I remember being so zooted. I was like, dang, I really got to take this back a little bit. Because if we get to 420 and I take weeks off, I might pass out.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that. So I'm concerned. So I hope we see each other around.
Bro,
that
we got to
time.
start a support group just for that day. Like, all right, so how are we all doing? Let's all FaceTime. Me, you, and Jess, let's FaceTime each other. Are you okay? Are you okay? All right, cool. Keep going a little bit. Keep going.
Absolutely, man.
My boy, appreciate you, man.
Thank
Thank you so much for coming on the show. You definitely was an amazing guest tonight.
Thank you for the
Cash Color
invitation.
Cannabis, a high level of conversation on LivehiphopDaily.tv. And this episode again is sponsored by Sow and Reap and Bossville Farms.
Let's go.